What's up guys, Tommy Bowyer here from Movie Rewind and welcome to the next instalment of the history of comic book films. Today we'll be looking at The Silence, a period from 2005 to 2008. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in the last instalment, I talked about the comic boom from 2000 to 2005, when comic book films were starting to just explode into mainstream audiences and studios were taking a lot of interest in comic book films. However, from a period of 2005 to 2008, it can be seen that comic book films, people were starting to get a bit tired of them, fatigue started to set in, and studios didn't really know what to do with them. Now, this was a couple of years before they had the idea of building a cinematic universe. All of these films were kind of on their own. I mean, they were set in their own universe and all the sequels would just be from that specific superhero. So studios were starting to struggle to find superheroes that they could use in comic book films, and it really shows with some of the quality we were getting in those comic book films released during this period. So during The Silence, a lot of the original trilogies which were released during the comic boom really fell flat during this period, especially the original X-Men trilogy and the original Spider-Man trilogy. Now, most people are quite controversial. However, a lot of people agree that Spider-Man 3 is the worst of the original Spider-Man trilogy. It was released during The Silence, and you can really tell that there was just too much storytelling, there was too many elements to it, and it kind of just lost focus. And what I've noticed is Spider-Man 3, the problems in that film are exactly like the ones in X-Men The Last Stand. There's too many characters, there's not enough attention given to all of the characters, and the storytelling just gets out of hand. And that's why I feel that this period is known as The Silence, because studios were starting to interfere with comic book films and they were just getting confused. They were trying to overindulge in all these different comic book themes which fans wanted to see, and it just resulted in like a half-done film which really didn't please anyone because there was just too much in it. A lot of the original comic book films which were brought out during The Silence didn't leave a lot of impact either. For instance, Ghost Rider, that film is pretty terrible and it didn't leave much of an impact. The problem, and why I've called this period The Silence, is because a lot of the films didn't really leave an impact during this period. I think studios were confused specifically with what to do with comic book films. The comic boom had kind of worn off by this point, and as cinematic universes were not the in thing at that time, there was just a lot of comic book films released which didn't leave a massive impact. Therefore, the genre kind of went silent during this period. However, in 2008, that was all about to change. So in conclusion, The Silence is probably one of the most interesting periods in comic book films history, in my personal opinion. It shares many similarities with the Dark Ages. A lot of the films released during this period did have their problems and really didn't leave much of an impact. However, in 2008, a little film called Iron Man was released, and let's just say that had one of the most significant impacts on comic book films to date.